the show that helps you and your business to thrive, not just survive. Tune in each week as Jane connects with guests in the wellness, business and publishing worlds, bringing you the most up-to-date training, techniques, healing and guidance for growth, mindset and motivation. Each session includes a magical guided meditation led by Jane or one of her special guests. Here's your host, Jane Scanlan. Hello and welcome to episode 18. And today I am going to be interviewing Craig Barlow from Leading Men. So Craig is a veteran Royal Navy chef with 3 medals, 2 wars and a sinking ship story, which I'm sure we're going to hear about. He helps men with leadership, relationships and basically raising the standards of leadership in men. From struggles, we're going to talk about struggles after leaving the military to right up to today. So welcome.
Thank you, Jane.
So please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. So usually when I get asked for descriptions is I kind of give that the veteran side of things, because that's a massive, like, huge part of my life, really, for like 13 years in the military, straight from school. And the way I described that career was the 3 medals, 2 wars and a sinking ship. It's always an intriguing one, especially the last bit. It's just like sinking ship. It's like, what the fuck? And since leaving, like 10 years ago now, I left. And since then, I've kind of gone down the tracks of continuing in service, as I would say, from like the military being about service. So I was a personal trainer for a little bit. I got really fucking bored of that, working in gyms. I went more into the bodywork side of things, so working more kind of with the nervous system, the brain and emotions, were attached to pain, and more kind of deeper into the human workings, so to speak, and behavior. And I really enjoyed that. And then after that, kind of combining all this together, I kind of went more into the actual coaching route, and especially towards men. So the last couple of years, I've really been focusing on being I say men's coach, pretty much, yeah. But like, as I call it, like leadership and relationships, which I'm sure we'll go into in more detail. But yeah, I moved to Malaga. I packed my delightful Peugeot 106 1-litre Zest with as much as I could get in it, and I drove from the UK to Malaga with no clue what I was doing. I was just like, I couldn't stand being back in my hometown and kind of doing life as you're supposed to do it after leaving the military. I was like, I don't think this is for me. And
so how long did you kind of last after leaving the military? How long did you last in your hometown before jumping in that car and driving to Spain?
I think I was there for 2 years. So like, I left, and then when as soon as I left, I went on a 6-month like world adventure where I was like, it was like I wanted to do the traveling and the adventure side without work and without being in the military. So I did like a bucket list trip around the world for 6 months, and then I started personal training, then started my own business in the body work, and I just got more and more fucking depressed, and like my long-term relationship of 8 years blew up. And like, it felt like everything was just blowing up, and like I was left with absolutely kind of nothing. And I was like, fuck. I was like, what do I do now? It was just like, and the only thing I knew that I was certain on was just like, okay, it's like, I absolutely love adventure and being outside and mountains. So I'm like, okay, where can I go? And I just sacked everything off, like rented my house. I didn't renew the lease, so I just sold all my gym stuff I had in the garage and gave most of my clothes away to my brother, and just took what I could get with no real plan, a limited amount of money, and just fucked off.
And then you got there. And what was life like once you got to Spain? Once you got to Malaga?
It was really good. Again, I was like, I was kind of the environment was the most important thing for me. So I was like, Malaga's one of the best places I've ever been in my life. It's like it's beautiful, and more on the outside of the city because of the nature outside in the mountains is like absolutely stunning, and that
Mm,
was kind of for me what I was really there for, to be outdoors, not really in the city. So it's great. It's a beautiful place. It's like, one of the hottest places in Europe. It's like a stunning city, really old, a lot of history. On the coast, and mountains altogether. So it was like it was pretty good in that sense. I was going through a lot of shit, obviously, from leaving the military and like finding like what the fuck am I doing?
yeah,
Like what direction am I going in? And it got like there's a couple of points where I nearly quit and like I thought I had to go home because I was just like just fucking hitting walls all the
yeah,
time, and then I ended up working in a I ended up getting, I don't know how I ended up getting this job, but I ended up getting a job in a organic uh, organic skincare like cosmetic store in the port, and working in there and doing kind of sales of like beauty products in in the port of
yeah.
Malaga for about 7 months, and that was an interesting point for me because I kind of struggled with that. I felt a lot of my ego took a bashing because I was like, I'm just out of the military. I've done all this other stuff, and then I'm like, feeling that kind of like failure and things not working out.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like I had a word with myself basically one day because I was going to this job and like kind of feeling a bit shit.
Yeah.
And then I just had a word with myself. I said, I was like, look, he's like, because I was getting tired of my own shit and kind of
Bullshit.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, complaining and like whiny. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, shut the fuck up. So I had a word with myself and said, like, look, like, how is this job right now helping you? What was the goal? What is the goal for you right now? I was like, to stay in Malaga. Like, that's it. It's like, if we just stay in Malaga right now and figure stuff out, that's good. I was like, okay, is this job helping you do that? I was like, yes. And it's like, right, well, shut the fuck up then. And I was like, okay. And that was it.
That was
And
it.
then I got my arse in gear, and I was there for like 7 months, and then I started coaching more and like being able to kind of survive and live very well on the south coast of Spain.
It's
And
amazing when you decide to stop whinging and whining and accept where you're at now and look around
mm,
you and like you said, like what is this helping me do? I remember doing similar when I was in the London ambulance service,
yeah,
and I'd go up and I'd hate every second of it, and I probably was absolutely awful to work with. um and then I just realized how much I hate whinging and whining, and when I start doing it and complaining all the time, I know like I've got to change something, and I have that same conversation with myself. I was like, what can you see as good? And I remember going up, and I used to love walking from Waterloo to Southwark and looking up and seeing the Shard and going, fuck me. I'm working in central London. I love this, And then when I got into the office, I didn't like that bit, but I just would have that moment every morning. Ah, there's the Shard. I love this. And then it shifted, and then I got to leave that job within, I don't know, I think it was 4 months of having that talk to myself.
yeah. It is. It's like when you get tired of your own crap because like I don't like complaining or
Mm-mm.
whining. It's just like it never have. So when I start doing it myself, I'm like,
Yeah.
have a fucking word with yourself, and like, but this is a thing because you can make the shift. So like it's draining, isn't it, when like you're
Yeah.
around other people that are like fucking complaining and whining all the time. And you just want to say shut the fuck up, like, because I would say that to myself. This thing like, shut the fuck up, stop fucking whining and do
Yeah.
something. And it is that simple to do, but it's just like sometimes you have to get tired of your own bullshit or have someone actually tell you to shut the fuck up and stop complaining.
Yes, definitely. So you've told us a little bit about your journey,
Yeah.
but let's go back to the military.
Okay.
Like, what made you leave school and go directly into the military?
Well, I figured this out like not so long ago. It's just like where and like how did I come around to that? And it was and a bit of a seed was planted when I watched Under Siege with Steven Seagal when I was
Yes.
probably watched it with my dad when I was like 8 years old or something. Good old proper action movie. And
Yes.
I was just like, oh, that's super cool. He's just like, oh, I'd love to do that. And he was a chef as well, right? He was a special
Yes, he
forces
was.
chef, and he like kicked ass and saved the day and all that. And that must have been a seed planted because like when I don't have a history of family in the military. I think
Hmm.
my granddad that died when I was very small was like in the army when he was younger, obviously during the war, but like nothing really. So yeah, and I didn't really like. I hated school, like in a sense of I was not a great student. I was just like it was like sit down and learn in the classroom. No, thank you. And funny enough, the only subjects I actually was really probably good at were and that I enjoyed. Funny enough, the ones I enjoyed were geography and cooking. So
Mm.
and then I ended up going to the careers office with a friend at school who was going over. And as they do in careers office, they drag you in and try and sign you up as well. And then pretty much like a few months after I left school, I was joining the Navy basic training as a 16-year-old in Plymouth.
Yeah. Nice. And then moving through there, do you feel like your career within the military has helped your business career?
100 fucking percent, like
Mm.
massively. I was like, I'm so very grateful for for my military career and the time in there, especially as a man, and especially the work that I do with men. Is like there's so many similarities
Yeah.
that you get from military and like leadership. And being around men and being around leadership constantly and being around that kind of that way of living and the kind of the ethos and all of this great stuff and all of the training
The
and the
massive
practice.
structure, isn't there?
Yeah, the
Rules, regulations,
structure,
structure.
discipline, all of this. But it's not as people think, oh, it must have been really hard in there. It's not. It was actually fucking easy because you got so many people around you. You're all doing the same thing. There's a lot of structure. There's a lot of leadership. There's a lot of
Hmm.
training. So it was really like thoroughly enjoyed all of it. But because when I've struggled when I left, it's like it's weird because structure's given to you on a platter.
Yeah.
It's like you don't necessarily integrate it fully into yourself, right? So I noticed this is a part of when I struggled when I left was like I just kind of like was fucking all over the place a bit and just kind of like I didn't understand what was going on. And then
Mm.
I was like, okay, I need to use what I know and what I've got. And I started to unpick the military and like all these tools and skills that I'd learned and like the mentality and the mindset and all of this. And I realized that like although I'd been in that environment for so long, there was a lot that I'd not kind of really well not that I'd really used. I'd used in that environment, but I like, oh, these are really useful to transfer into the outside world for me to
Yeah, I
help
can
me sort my shit
imagine.
out, to help
Yeah.
me integrate more structure, to help me with my self leadership is like using that mentality to just kind of like get on with shit, even though it's hard and you're struggling and you're going through crap. It's just like you just fucking keep going, and that was just like the mentality and like because people will say, "Oh, you're so brave, just driving off to Malaga like in a car with no plan." I'm like, why? It's like, why wouldn't you do that? It's just like for me, it's
Yeah.
just like that doesn't make sense. It's like you just fucking do it. Um, but it doesn't mean there's not struggle involved in that. But I think that the military gave me such a great mentality, and especially around leadership, and obviously all the training that we've done is like it ingrained something in me. And then, but I was like still kind of a bit immature. And so when I came out, it was like I kind of went through all these lessons and leadership and all this, and then kind of retweaked them into something that was useful now. And
Yeah.
especially in working with men as well in men's work, I find it is like it is it's like irreplaceable and invaluable skill sets from one of the highest gold standards of leadership in the world you can get.
Interesting. Because it's definitely something I struggle with, like being consistent as a business owner.
Yeah,
And I know I work, if I've got structure in my life, you've got a
yeah,
happy Jane, right? And it's the same with my daughter. If she's got structure in her life, I've got a happy child. Structure is so important. Other points that I have over structured my life, if that makes sense, and my business, and I'm supposed to do emails at this point, and I'm supposed to, and then it's all because I've almost like tied myself up in chains. Then it's too much. There's got to be that little bit of
yeah,
flexibility, isn't it? I kind of
yeah.
talk about it as like bamboo, like a bamboo
Mm.
structure, or instead of metal poles, metal scaffold poles around you,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
it turns into rigidity. So it's like it's, and I find as well, like this might be with women too, but obviously I speak to men from a men's, because I'm a man. But like it's the sometimes the over rigidity and discipline for men is it's to kind of mask kind of insecurity and anxiety as well. So I noticed that.
Mm,
So I had a lot of that. So I became very rigid in my discipline when I left, and was like probably really difficult to be around because I was so super rigid. But it's because underneath I was super anxious,
yeah,
and so it's like that's really not helpful either. So and I didn't realize that because I'd never really been anxious, to be honest,
yeah,
much in my life. You know, the usual bits in the sense when you're doing something new, you get the kind of like a little bit of nervousness or whatever. Of course, all that normal stuff, but because I think I've done so many like hard things and so many trainings and so in so many intense environments in the military, it was just like it was just I didn't wasn't bothered. I was like, yeah, cool, let's go, and because you're just
hmm,
used to it. But I find the over rigidity a lot is very stifling, and it's again from my experience has been through underlying kind of anxiety and like I've got to control everything.
yes, 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 yes. Yeah, makes utter sense. So
Mm.
let's talk about the work you do. And I love following you. I love watching, reading the posts. And I'm following quite a few men's coaches now because I find it so fascinating. The different language you use compared
Uh,
to the when women are working with women, the different structures and strategies,
mm.
um, and I think the world has changed. This is my opinion, and then you can tell me. You can tell me what's going on. I feel like the world has changed so much in the last 150 for women in the way we are within the world, and I almost feel like there's that must be very difficult for men, even though like we're like virtually probably the same age, we've grown up the same kind of environment, but over the grand scale of things, women's lives have changed. What's changed in men's? What is going on there? Because we're feeling more empowered, but then I think within relationships,
Hmm.
talking from experience, it
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't tend to work out for kind of reasons like that. I don't know. Give us the goss, Craig.
Well,
Give us the lowdown.
I can only give you my perspective, and like not everyone may agree with this, and that's absolutely fine. But in kind of blunt terms, I think like women are becoming men and men are becoming women.
Yeah, it's a bit
That's
shit, isn't
what's
it?
it's a big overcorrection,
Ugh.
right? So in
Mm.
terms of like in a sense of like you have the feminist movement, which is great for like women's rights and awesome, fantastic, obviously. But then it's like I think that's overcorrected and like kind of what it is now is like not what it was originally about.
Agree.
And I think a lot of women are becoming kind of more like masculine and like kind of like the feminism is about it's like free sex and I can do whatever the fuck I want and like I can go fuck whoever I want and all this. I'm like, well, you
It's
can,
it's very
but
masculine, isn't it?
kind of, yeah. But there's like, and you absolutely can, but it's just like, but then it's like, on the other hand, if you want a quality man, It's just like you have to understand like what a quality man is like is looking for, and he's not looking for that. So then you get
Mm.
women complaining about men. It's like, where's all the good men? Where's all the masculine men? It's just like they're not looking at you by like in the sense of how you're behaving and how you're going about being a woman.
Mhm.
And the vice versa as well, right? It's just like where women are frustrated with men because they want men to kind of be in a sense. Well, I say masculine, whatever that fucking means to you.
Mhm.
I know what it kind of means to me, but and then in kind of men not leading, and then women being kind of angry and frustrated. There's a lot of like intertwined like wounding going on there. A lot of old emotional baggage, a lot of hurt people. And it's like and I come around to this is like I understand it, and it's just like, and the way I look at it is just like we're designed to be complementary, right?
Mm.
Not combative, not like passive aggressive in like where it's almost been okay for women to joke about men and make fun of men, but then if men do it to women, it's just like it's toxic and all of
Yeah.
this bullshit. And I've got no time for the fucking bullshit. And it's like it's
Yeah.
really fucking annoys me because I wish like, and I say this to like men and women. I wish everyone would just shut the fuck up and just focus on your own shit and like deal with your own stuff. Take responsibility and ownership. Stop being a victim
Mhm.
and sort your fucking life out. And I mean that, and I say that, and I say that, and people say, "Well, where's your compassion and empathy?" I get that quite a lot, but it's like that is compassion for me because it's like it's telling you what other people think, but I probably don't want to say to you because
Yeah.
they don't want the conflict, and I don't mind conflict. So
Mhm.
it's like, so it doesn't really bother me, and it's like, but for me, that's true. It's just like, is I get it, is like in a sense, well, it's not that easy, blah blah blah. It's like, look, we've all had to fucking do it. I've had to do it. It wasn't. It's times where it hasn't been easy, and it's been difficult, and like but the way I looked at it as well, tough shit. I've got to do it. There's like no other choice.
Yeah.
So,
You either stay with the repeated kind of negative patterns in
mm,
relationships and life, or
yeah,
you've got to do something about it. You've got to make a change, haven't you?
yeah. Yeah, exactly, and I think it's shifting again now because you can see like now even in the men's workspaces like more and more men's coaches coming out of the woodwork as well, and like
Mm, love it.
the same with that. It's just like yes, I would kind of yeah, I mean, but it's the same like with it's just like and I do love it, and I love the kind of men's movements that are going on right now. It's much needed, but like with everything, there's shit ones and there's good ones,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So for me, that's a lot of like is like raising standards. That's why I say like raising the standards of leadership because when my view of men's work is leadership, it's like
Mhm.
it's again using my military background a lot, and obviously a lot of the work I've done, the body work, the emotional work, the nervous system work, trauma work, all of this is like it's all
Mhm.
needed. But it's for me is like I look at it from a leadership perspective and a relationship perspective because as a man, you can be fucking awesome in your business. Like if you're a CEO, you're a team leader, you're in corporate leadership. It's like you got your own business, whatever. It's like you could be awesome in that and perform at a great level in that, but your home life sucks. It's like
Yeah.
in your relationship, it's just like it's all over the place. Your partner's unhappy. It's like you're not having as much sex as you want to. You're both a bit miserable. You don't communicate like properly. You're afraid of conflict and kind of rocking the boat, so to speak. And you want the
Mhm.
happy wife, happy life, and all of that shit that you get taught. And the paradox is kind of like it's actually the opposite of that. And the way I approach it with men is just like a lot of the first conversations I have is like it's like being selfish. Like you need to be selfish, and they're like, "What?" Because guys are too busy pleasing. Is like too busy pleasing women, being super pleasing. I know people use the nice guy term a lot. I don't really use that much. But it's a big problem. And then I know there's not nice guy coaches out there, very good ones. But
So
it's
it's that's a very female trait as well, isn't it? People pleasing.
it's human. It's
Is it
human,
just
really.
human trait?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I'd say that. It's like like you could say people pleasing, lack of boundaries,
Mm.
not knowing your needs, not being able to communicate your needs, and like you do that through manipulation of like, if I do this, then they'll do something for me without me
Yeah.
actually articulating that in words.
Yeah.
And I think we've all had to do work on that in some area, shape or form, for sure. But it's with but with guys is like, and this is from, and this is what I stick to, because it's, I can see is like, I get a lot of shit on like especially Facebook, right? And like, as you do in comment sections for some of the things that I say. But again,
Yeah.
because I don't care, because I'm not bothered about conflict, or somebody's decided that their feelings are hurt, offended, because I know the place that it comes from.
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and my background is in a military environment, right, where you get trained at a very high level, because you are basically training for worst case scenarios, which is attacks and death, bombings, chemical attacks, fires, floods, like all of you're training at a fucking high level.
Yeah.
And and in that leadership dynamic is just like how you communicate with each other is is direct and to the point, but nobody gets their feelings hurt. It's like, you understand. It's just like, just say what you want to fucking say and then get on with it, and everyone's cool. And that for me is the most efficient environment of leadership I've ever seen. And
Mm.
I work with guys in corporate. I work with guys who have teams, and it's like the communication. It's like school children.
Yeah.
No, nobody
I,
knows how to fucking communicate.
I think we need a huge. This is men and women.
Sure.
We really need to learn how to communicate effectively, don't we?
Yeah, and this is why I use a leadership model, because a lot in the men's space, and I've been down different avenues in this to like see what I find useful and whatnot. And it's great that there's loads of stuff out there. Like I would never ever put down other men's work practices, because if they're attracting a certain type of man to do work
Yeah.
with, all up for it. Absolutely amazing, love it. But it's like, but again, it's like, for me, it makes sense for me, for who I am, my background. That is like, not everyone's gonna like be attracted to me, but then it's just like, the ones that are the ones that for me, that are the ones that get the ones that are right for me and get results. Like, I don't like to work with like spiritual flow boys,
Mhm.
right? It's like I don't I don't have the patience for it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's very offended and kind of very triggered and super feminine. Guys
Yeah.
is like, no, it's just like, I like, that's why I like the guys who are like either ex-military, like athletes, business owners,
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, because you've had to build a certain level of mentality to get to that point. And
Yes.
that's a good match for me. And if you use, there's a lot of things, even like masculine feminine dynamics and all of this is just like, it's great, but I think most people don't even fucking understand what they are. And
Mm.
then it's like, and then I think as well, in the self-development world on social media, they just get put in a bowl and just like watered down into shit, like a lot of other things in self-development. So I kind of use it a little bit, but I use it in a sense of leadership, because when I speak to men, from speaking to Ben about masculine and feminine dynamics, is just like, which I have done. I've used that. Obviously, I've got into that because it is really fucking important,
Mhm.
100%. But it's just a way, like, and I use the word wanky a lot. It's just because that's something that I just don't connect with. Like, it's just, that's all it is. It's just like, but there's ways that gets talked about that I just find a bit wanky, and it's just like, where a lot of guys that I know with, they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" It's just like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So that's why I use leadership, and that's why I use is my military training and leadership a lot, because I feel for me that actually connects with men a lot more. Men
Mm.
understand that, instinctively understand the model of leadership.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's almost something ingrained in you as a man. I think is to a certain level, whatever that is to be a leader. It is part of that. So I've just found that communicating more in that way makes more sense to the men, and the men that I suppose that I work with, than kind of a lot of the other stuff that's kind of going around.
And how do you help these men with the kind of communicating better within their relationships, within the boardroom? Um, do you have different strategies, or is it literally different for every single person that
A
walks
bit
through
of
your
both.
door?
A bit of
Mm,
both. So there's frameworks that absolutely work because again, it's like their leadership frameworks from gold standard leadership environments. So using the military part and then using the kind of the more uh, the deeper side of kind of like coaching and things like the relationship dynamics um, and what was your question again, Jane?
well, kind of, how can men and
Oh,
women
how to
communicate
the
better?
pragmatic. That was it.
Yeah.
So it was the yeah. So it's like there is pragmatic frameworks, and it does like the different guys kind of need a little like different tweaks as well because not
Hmm.
all guys are like I don't expect all guys to be like me, right? It's just like guys have their own expression of their own masculinity and leadership. But
Yeah.
it's like so it's more about helping them find what works for them. But
Yeah.
there are 100% things that like okay, you need to be okay with conflict. Like you need to be okay, and especially in relationships. So this is why, because if you can lead a relationship, you can do it fucking anywhere. Because the
Hmm.
place where all your shit shows up the most is in your most
Yeah.
intimate relationships. So, and I find a lot of guys are afraid of conflict with their partners. They don't say things. They don't tell the truth. They're not. Um, they abandon themselves because they want to like please and not upset them or rock the boat or offend them. They don't want to seem like a dick or an asshole
Yeah.
and so basically as they lie or they don't tell the truth and it's like they're not honest so it's like it's about being able to be radically honest and
Mm.
be okay with conflict. It doesn't mean you have to like conflict. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you might not get anxious or it might not be really uncomfortable and you won't want to do it. But it's like, but you have to get good at facing potential conflict and dealing with the outcomes for that and actually learning how to navigate into resolution because that's something that doesn't happen. Is like in
Yeah.
relationships, you keep cycling the same shit, or stuff gets swept under the
Yeah.
rug. You keep cycling the same shit round, so you don't grow as a relationship because you can't deal with the shit that's right in front of you to get past. So then you can get to the
Hmm.
next thing because there'll be another thing. Of course, it fucking will. So and it's like I wouldn't say I'm amazing at that either. Like I'm not amazing at all of this. I'm still learning too. This is never going to
Yeah.
stop. So, but what I find is just like where if you're willing to actually like to be in it until you get to resolution and learn from it. Because again, I learn my mentality is I learn from action. I learn from taking action, and then
Hmm.
rather than like overly studying or reading on everything. That
Yeah.
usually comes. I usually do that ass backwards, but
Yeah.
but it's if so it's like you don't have to be great at it, and like guys generally aren't. So that I kind of tell them this as well. Like, look, I'm not amazing at it either, but what I will do is I will stick at it, especially in relationship, until you get to resolution, and it's uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And I don't particularly like it, but it's just like, but that's not the point. It's like the point is like I would do it because I know on the other side of that is more intimacy, is more connection, is kind of better sex, is like all of these wonderful things that we want.
Mm.
And even in some cases, it might actually mean the end of a relationship.
Hmm.
And and that's I think what a lot of guys are afraid of, and probably women too. But for me, it's my values and my virtues that I live by. It's like it means sometimes you have to make hard decisions that aren't going to be popular. So it's it's like I'm rather be honest than kind of like avoid being honest and if that ended up in like the end of a relationship then I can accept that.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's more important for me to be my values in my integrity. And this is what I mean by being selfish, is it's like where you can't abandon yourself as a man.
Yeah.
And we do that all the time as men in relationships.
Yeah. That is so true. And I think, yeah, there are many women that do the same as well.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
God,
Yeah.
it's a bloody minefield.
It is, and it's like but so there's a couple of parts of that as well. So it's just like is a lot of what I would do is just like 100% is it's relevant to both men and women because there's a human element there, right? So
Mhm.
we said about that in terms of boundaries, like having boundaries, knowing what your needs are, getting your needs met. It's like learning to meet them yourself, learning to self lead. Like all of these things are like
Mhm.
they're dealing with your shit, whatever your flavor of trauma is, and whatever that means
Yeah.
to somebody is just like that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually really useful. A lot of trauma is useful. Um, but it's and then there's the differences between men and women that go on top of that. So it's like you got your human part that we all have, which we all go through, and
Mhm.
like and then on top of that you got your man shit and your woman shit.
Yes, we have indeed. And we got a lot to work through on both parts half the time.
Well, this is what I
But
mean, but it's
it's
complementary,
worth
Jane.
it, isn't it? That's what I
It,
always think. It's worth dealing with your own shit and your trauma, coming to those resolutions
uh,
because life is always better on the other side, even if, like you say, it's the end of a relationship.
yeah,
And if it's not, the relationship's even better. So
yeah,
what's
exactly.
not to like?
And there's a thing in this as well. Is like this just brought a point up for me as well. Just like there's just differences in language that I see in like in a lot of self development, and I feel a lot of self development is very feminine based as well.
Oh yes, 100%, 100%. I was talking to my last client about this and about your posts
Yeah,
and how the language is so different, and
yeah.
it's, of course, it needs to be different, doesn't it?
It does, and the one that kind of like kicked up a bit of fuss was when I was talking about vulnerability. Is just like where, and obviously there's a piece in that where it's like it's gonna. I'm not generally trying to be polarizing. It's just generally what I think. So it's like, and
Yeah.
this is what I've seen as well from like myself and like kind of maybe not mistakes but learnings I've got from working with men where it's just like talking about being vulnerable. It's I would say that's more of a feminine trait. I would use for a man is like acting with courage or courageous honesty, right? It's like
Mhm.
that's I'm like which one do I feel actually like makes me kind of feel more in my fucking masculine and more kind
Yeah,
of like
100%. Whereas
powerful,
I
right?
think if I said, "Oh, Craig, I need you to be really vulnerable now," I would feel I'd even see you shrink. But whereas if you say, uh, like your post, "Be courageous, come on, take a risk,"
Yeah.
you can see a man grow with that rather than shrink, like, "Oh, I don't wanna."
It is, and you could even that could even be used for a woman too. It's not man centric. It's just like for
Mm.
me, it's just like what makes sense to me, what I see, what I feel is more useful. Because it's like, and this is the thing is like it had people saying, "Oh, that's toxic masculinity, is like this bullshit," and I'm like, okay, yeah, there we go.
No.
And it's like, but if you look at that, if you are using the language of yourself of like and the energy of acting with courage and being courageous, vulnerability is a fucking byproduct anyway.
Yes. Yep, yep.
So it's like you kind of like you're skipping the middleman, so to speak. And for a lot of guys, it's just like even the word, and it's just and again, it's for me. I'm like looking at okay, what do a lot of men struggle with, probably in their own heads of like, and like vulnerability. Yeah, absolutely. But if you replace that with courage and courageous action and
Yeah.
honesty and risk, that is masculine language.
Yeah.
That for me anyway, that feels more like masculine language that guys will connect to. So there's a lot of this right now. There's stuff that's coming up from me here where it's just like a lot of question a lot of stuff that's in self development and like what's very feminine based because I see there's a lot. It's almost like a lot of men's work is encouraging men to be like more in their feminine side. It's like whatever the
Mm.
fuck that means, but for me, it's if you focus on leadership as a man, it's just like you're covering all of that shit without actually having to use that kind of lingo and language.
Yeah, yeah, agree. And just seeing some of those posts was like little light bulb moments for
Mm,
me reading
yeah.
some of your posts, and it's just like, yeah, my God, we're so different. You change the language, and it's a
Yeah,
whole different vibe. And the kind of work that I do with women is helping us to soften and be more in the receiving mode
yeah.
instead of trying to control everything.
Mm.
And so
And
yeah,
it's
it totally works on both ways. We're trying to soften,
it is, but
and then
it's not as black and white either. It's just like where there's lots of nuances in that too, right? Where it's just like guys can be like kind of like almost in that overly rigid masculine as well, right? And
hmm
they need to chill the fuck out a bit. That's where I came from. I came from like
yeah,
overly rigid military mode. Rah! Everything was like I was smashed down a brick wall, and it's like but like that's useful as well. So not
yeah.
just again over swinging the other way and going kind of into
You
more
don't
of
need
a
that all the time, but
no, no,
sometimes
no.
you can, yeah,
Yeah,
step into that
but then
energy.
it's the overcorrect of going into the other end, and I was just like, oh, this isn't really helping me that much, and so
Mm,
like kind of coming back and finding a bit of a sweet spot. I think you need to tend to do that. You need to push in kind of different areas and push to the edges of them to find where your sweet spot is.
hmm
And because like I know guys that are like kind of more maybe like more softer or more even like on the scale kind of lean towards more kind of feminine, but it doesn't mean that you still can't lead and have those traits of leadership as a man, right?
Yeah.
100%. But it's not to say that you can't have that part and the man shouldn't be that, and that's what's confusing for a lot of men. So this is why I say it's like is a focus on leadership, and it's like it's the human part, then the man woman part, and almost like an individual part too. Is just like what's your
hmm
individual? How do you express that as an individual,
Yeah.
right? Where it's not like I like to go climbing on cliffs and jumping off cliffs and doing crazy shit because I've always loved that my whole life, right? So
hmm
it's like I don't expect all guys to like, well, if you don't do this, then you're not a real man. It's like it's ridiculous, but it's so it's like the where we I can find a common ground with men that affects that is speaks to I think all men is leadership,
hmm
and especially combining that with relationship.
Fantastic. So, how would how would a man start working with you
Do the most difficult thing probably I think men have to do
ever? Yeah.
is actually ask for help
hmm
or come say hello to me because even though I think Hannah says this all the time. My girlfriend, she says like she thinks people on social media sometimes get the wrong impression of me because I'm like direct and kind of like brash. Is just like she says, but like people knew that you were a big softie as well. It's just like, well, yeah, but it's just like I am because I that's my kind of balance. But it's like you're going to get misunderstood, right, as well. So
hmm
I am very approachable. So it's like I do a lot of my stuff on social media. So it's like through Facebook, Craig Barlow, or through Instagram, the Craig Barlow, and is just drop me a message as I just interact with some of my stuff and have a conversation. And and I see it with all guys. It's like I know that as a man, it's like sometimes it's difficult to actually ask for help. People say that it's pride that gets in the way for men. Is like it's not actually like men are shit scared. To be honest, it's like men are
Mm,
shit scared because there's something in them that knows they're gonna have to like touch on stuff that they don't want to,
yeah.
or they don't know how, and that's actually scary. I know because I've been there like more than
hmm
once, and so and I find is like when you kind of explain that to men, they're kind of like it's almost like this, this sigh of relief because one of the problems for men is like a majority of men are walking around with the same issues going on in their head, the same things they're repressing and not talking about
hmm
and not dealing with, and it's like not realizing because you don't want to appear weak, you don't want to appear emasculated, you don't want to be laughed
Yeah.
at, you don't want to feel embarrassed, all of this sort of shit, and it's and you don't realize that like yeah, there's a fucking shit ton of other men out there doing exactly the same thing. So
Mm.
and
You're
it's
not
not
alone.
and it's not as big of a thing as you're making out in your own head.
Oh yeah, our heads love to do that, make things massive, and then
Yeah,
when actually speak it, out
Yeah.
loud and get some help,
Uh-huh.
shrinks. It shrinks. So have you got any offer for the audience, or what are the different ways of working with you, that kind of stuff?
Okay, so right now I have a one-to-one mentorship, which is minimum 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
and that's generally for business owners, kind of CEOs, guys in leadership roles, or that have their
Yeah.
own business. I have a group 1 year mentorship, men's work mentorship around leadership and relationships. That will be enrolling again in April. So that's something for that. I would say it's generally for kind of the everyman,
Yes.
so to speak, who wants to kind of like dive into this and like really kind of raise their standards, like have better relationships, more intimacy, more sex, even like more money as well. Is just like it's guys when they do this is like they get promotions and pay rises and make more money too, which is great.
Yes, yes,
So
yes. That's good.
and events. So at some point this year, I'm just sorting out the details now. I'm going to be doing tactical leadership weekends. So I'm teaming up with a ex SAS chief instructor, and combining the kind of like the work I do with kind of tactical leadership and response training in the
Ooh,
UK. So like
sounds
scenario based,
amazing.
yeah. So like it's kind
Mm.
of it's it's very cool. Some people are scared of it, but I'm super excited by it. It's like you're doing like kidnapping drills,
Oh my
um,
god.
yeah, self defense drills, uh, dealing with knife attacks, carjackings, like intense incidents and like trauma first aid. So like you come in like you have a scenario where there's turned over cars or car accident and there's people kind of different injuries or unconscious and that, and you have to respond.
Oh,
So
this
it's
sounds exciting.
it's teaching. It's like a lot of the stuff that like kind of annoys me in the men's space too is just like, and I understand it and it's useful, but like just the sitting around and talking about shit, it's like, yeah, it's useful, but like as men, it's just like we need to put shit into action and put it into practice as like as quick as
Mm.
possible. It's just like for me, that's something that needs to be done. So this is why we're doing this weekend's trainings, to put men in positions where you actually you know where you're at, you know where your edges are, you know your physiological responses by actually doing the thing and
Mm.
training and feeling uncomfortable and like and nervous. It's like so you're able to deal with higher levels of stress and
Yeah.
performance, which for me is like is so much missing in the men's space right now, and it's fucking fun. It's like
I was
I'm
going to
like,
say it sounds
yeah,
super exciting and fun.
yeah, absolutely. I might even. This is the thing with the weekends as well. I might even open them up to the ladies as well because I'm sure there's a lot of women that would love to do those too. And it's like it'd be great for the dynamics as well. That'd be awesome. So, but we'll see. But like we're starting them at some point this year, maybe around Easter,
Hmm.
and get the first one rolling out for that. So if people are interested in that, they want more details in that, they can get in touch with me as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so thank you so much, Craig, for coming on
You're
and
welcome.
sharing about your life. Oh, wait, wait, wait.
Oh,
Sinking ship. You have not told
oh,
us
okay.
about
All
the
right.
sinking ship. You can't go.
All right. Do you want the sinking ship?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Um, so this was when I was 19 years old. I think it was my second ship that I was on. I just come back from the Middle East, and I flew out to join a frigate, which is like about 250 person ship with big guns on the front. It's called a destroyer,
Ooh.
and I was flying out to the Philippines to join it, and it was halfway through like a world tour. So it was like the probably one of the best ships I could have got because it's like when one's going on a world tour, it's just like you want to be on it because it's going everywhere. So I flew out to Manila to join the ship. I had one night out in Manila, which is a story for another day, and then the next day we sailed for Australia. And I was on this ship for 10 days, and I was in bed one night about 10 p.m. because I was on the early shift in the kitchen, and the ship just went just started like fucking vibrating and shaking like really hard. And
Oh my
I,
God.
I opened the curtain. I opened the curtain to my bed, and like there was one guy sat in the mess deck, and he looked at me like wide eyed. I looked at him, and was like, "What the fuck was that?" And then it did it again, and we were like, "Shit!" And then the alarm started going off, the emergency alarm, and
Yeah.
so we're like, "Oh shit, we've fucking hit something here." So you're getting changed into your overalls and your battle gear, and like guys were coming running into the mess deck, and as you open the door, you could hear water going
Oh crap.
rushing in. So we were like,
Yeah.
"Fuck!" So we went to emergency stations and basically damage control. So like you go in and like you get an assessment of the damage. Is like you got to go and shut compartments and lock compartments off. You've got to put fires out. You've got to start pumping water out of compartments
Mm-hmm.
with hoses and pumping stuff, and like yeah, the fires is like putting all this shit out and like putting up shoring, like kind of wooden scaffolding to stop the bulkheads or the walls kind of exploding.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we went through for a good number of hours, and then we ended up kind of grounding the ship on a beach off on a very tiny island about 300 miles off the coast of Australia, and we were there for 2 weeks while they were figuring out what to do with us and how to sort out, because
Whoa.
obviously it's never happened before. So
And what happened? Did it run aground? Was it what?
yeah, so we ran aground. So we stopped everything from basically we stopped it from sinking, which it was
Yeah.
like I think apparently we were quite close to actually sinking, or abandoned ship. So
Yeah.
then we grounded the ship on a beach, and then we still had to do, we had 24/7 pumping. We were eating like all the tinned emergency food
Yeah.
because we couldn't cook. And we were there for 2 weeks while they sent a tow ship to come and take the ship away.
Wow. Yeah.
And then they flew us off by an RAF jet from this island to Sydney, and they were like, "Look, we don't know what's going on, so just go and basically do what you want, and then report back to this RAF base at so and so date." So I ended up having 3 months in Australia at 19, just going fucking wild.
God, on the East Coast.
Yeah, going wild and for 3 months with a load of sailors. And
Awesome. And getting paid for it, I'm assuming, obviously.
absolutely getting paid. For which when I ran
Wow.
home, my brothers called me a wanker.
Of course.
Of course they did. And I was like, "Yep." And so yeah, that was the story of the sinking ship.
Nice. Thank you. We can say goodbye to you now.
Okay.
Thanks, Craig.
No worries,
Pleasure
Jane.
to have you on. And
All right.
please get in touch with Craig Barlow, and it's leadingmengroup@gmail.com, or his name on Facebook, Craig Barlow, or the Craig Barlow on Insta.
That's correct.
Absolute pleasure to speak to you. Keep doing your amazing work.
Awesome. Thanks for the invite, Jane. Appreciate it.
No probs. Thank you. Bye then.
See you later. Bye bye.
Okay, so that was episode 18 of Stay Sane with Jane. Now, normally we would have the meditation session, but we have had such an amazing call interview with Craig that we have totally run over. What we're going to do is just a quick breathing technique, mindfulness that you can do anywhere, any place. So there's no need to stay in anxiety. There's no need to stay in pain. So let's just take a moment, have a little daydream, and we're just going to take 5 minutes to relax and tune into your soul. My name's Jane Scanlan, and we're going going to do a quick 5-minute meditation. That's my coined phrase for meditation and mindfulness. I invite you to place a hand on your chest and a hand on your belly. And at first, just tune in to the way you are breathing and the way your body is moving. Remember, there is no right or wrong. There just is. And now try elongating the breath, breathing in through the nose, filling up your lungs and chest, feeling that rib cage expand, and then holding your breath. And when ready, releasing with a sigh. And again, a deep breath in through the nose. Feeling your abdomen swell, your chest expand. Filling your lungs to full capacity. And holding, and releasing and letting go. Breathe in, hold, and release and let go. If you notice now, just move back to your normal breathing and tune it in to the way you are breathing now. Tune into your heart and how that feels, and the energy within your body, mind, and soul. You can use this simple breathing technique anywhere, any place, anytime. If you're feeling at all anxious, stressed, or depressed, then you can literally just tune into your breath and take 3 deep inhalations with your hand on your belly, hand on your chest, and just go through that cycle. Relaxing the body, the mind, reducing the heart rate, helping to slow down any anxiety chemicals flowing through your body, and helping your body and mind and soul to just relax, feel safe, feel secure, and to start pumping those happy hormones around your body instead. So that's it from me, Jane Scanlan, with this week's meditation, a quick 5-minute breathing technique, which you can do literally anytime, any place, and it will take you about 3 minutes. Stay Sane with Jane, the show that helps you and your business to thrive, not just survive. Tune in each week as Jane connects with guests in the wellness, business and publishing worlds. bringing you the most up-to-date training, techniques, healing and guidance for growth, mindset and motivation.